Helena Cavalcante estaba frente al mostrador de la tienda de telas más antigua de Sao Paulo, aferrada a un vale sin valor. El dueño, el señor Durval, gritó para que todos los clientes lo oyeran. Las mujeres divorciadas no tenían voz ni voto, no merecían crédito y deberían avergonzarse de presentarse allí pidiendo favores. Sus palabras resonaron en el aire de aquella calurosa tarde de marzo y hirieron a Helena como un cristal afilado. Intentó explicarle que el cheque del alquiler atrasado llegaría la semana siguiente, que solo era cuestión de días, pero el señor Durval no la escuchó. Para él, Helena era simplemente otra mujer que lo había perdido todo en el divorcio y ahora vivía de las apariencias. Y se aseguró de dejarlo bien claro delante de todas las damas de la alta sociedad que estaban de compras aquella tarde. Pero antes de continuar, comprueba si ya estás suscrito al canal y escribe en los comentarios desde dónde estás viendo este vídeo. Habían pasado 2 años desde que el marido de Helena, Gustavo Cavalcante, solicitó el divorcio para casarse con una mujer 20 años menor. Era un abogado de renombre, provenía de una familia tradicional y en el proceso logró conservar casi todo. La casa en Jardín Europa, el apartamento en la playa, las acciones de la empresa, todo pasó a sus manos. Helena recibía una pensión mínima para su hija Beatriz, de 16 años, y el derecho a seguir viviendo en un apartamento alquilado en Pineiros que Gustavo pagaba. Pero hace 4 meses, los pagos cesaron. Helena descubrió a través de su abogado que Gustavo había transferido todos los bienes a nombre de su nueva esposa y había declarado la quiebra fraudulenta de una empresa fantasma para alegar que ya no podía pagar la pensión. Se mudó a Río de Janeiro precisamente para obstaculizar cualquier acción legal, y desde entonces Helena se encontraba sola. Tenía 43 años, era arquitecta de profesión, pero había dejado de trabajar al casarse hacía 18 años. Gustavo siempre insistió en que una mujer en su posición no necesitaba trabajar. Ahora, después de casi 2 décadas fuera del mercado laboral, nadie la contrataba. Aquella tarde sofocante, Helena entró en la tienda de telas con el corazón apesadumbrado. Beatriz necesitaba un vestido para su graduación de bachillerato. La habían aceptado en la Universidad de Sao Paulo para estudiar medicina, pero se sentía avergonzada porque todas sus compañeras ya tenían sus vestidos encargados y ella no tenía nada. Helena había vendido casi todas sus joyas para pagar las facturas atrasadas del condominio, la luz y el gas. Solo le quedaba un anillo de perlas que había pertenecido a su abuela, pero no podía desprenderse de él. Era el último recuerdo de su familia. Intentó comprar la tela a crédito, prometiendo pagar la semana siguiente cuando finalmente recibiera el pago por un pequeño trabajo independiente que había conseguido: diseñar la renovación de un consultorio dental. Era poco dinero, pero era honesto. El señor Durval, sin embargo, ni siquiera la escuchó. Dijo que las mujeres divorciadas eran todas unas farsantes, que debía estar viviendo a costa de algún hombre y que no iba a creerle eso. Gritó que buscara a su exmarido si quería lujos o que consiguiera un trabajo de verdad en lugar de mendigar limosnas disfrazadas de crédito. Helena sintió que le ardían las mejillas. Los demás clientes la miraban fijamente, algunos con lástima, otros con desdén, otros simplemente curiosos por ver el escándalo. Apretó con fuerza la correa de su gastado bolso de cuero e intentó mantener la compostura. No iba a llorar allí, no delante de esa gente, pero cuando el señor Durval dijo que una mujer que no podía retener a su marido no merecía respeto, algo dentro de ella se quebró. Les dio la espalda y salió de la tienda con la poca dignidad que le quedaba, pero por dentro estaba hecha pedazos. El sol de marzo caía a plomo sobre la calle Augusta. Beatriz se había quedado en casa estudiando para el examen de ingreso a otra universidad como plan B. La chica desconocía la verdadera situación económica. Helena le ocultaba su desesperación, las facturas vencidas, el refrigerador cada vez más vacío. Fingía que todo estaba bien, que solo era una etapa de adaptación, pero la verdad era que si no conseguía el dinero pronto, las desalojarían del apartamento a fin de mes. El casero ya había enviado una notificación extrajudicial. Helena comenzó a caminar por la acera sin rumbo fijo, volver a casa, significaba enfrentarse a su hija y mentir una vez más. Permanecer allí, bajo sus miradas inquisitivas, era insoportable. Apenas había dado unos pasos cuando oyó una voz a sus espaldas, una voz masculina, educada y firme. «Señora, ¿me concede un momento, por favor?» Elena se detuvo y se giró lentamente. Un hombre estaba de pie a pocos metros. Tendría unos 55 años, cabello gris peinado hacia atrás, ropa elegante pero discreta, un traje gris oscuro impecablemente confeccionado. Su rostro estaba marcado por arrugas que denotaban a alguien que rara vez sonreía, pero sus ojos eran amables. Elena no lo conocía personalmente, pero ese rostro le resultaba familiar. Era Antonio Sampaio de Albuquerque, conocido en la ciudad como el Barón de Santana, un título heredado de su familia que se remontaba al imperio. Poseía fincas de café en el interior, pero también tenía inversiones en Sao Paulo. Su esposa había fallecido hacía unos años, noticia que apareció en los periódicos por aquel entonces. Elena recordaba vagamente haber leído sobre el accidente de coche que le costó la vida a la baronesa. Antonio dio un paso al frente y habló con voz tranquila, pero cargada de una compasión que parecía genuina. «Disculpe la intromisión, pero presencié lo que ocurrió dentro. No fue justo. No merecía ser tratada así». Elena se quedó sin palabras. No esperaba que nadie le hablara, y mucho menos que la defendiera. Antonio continuó. «Sé que no nos conocemos, pero me gustaría hacerle una propuesta. Usted es arquitecta, ¿verdad? La reconocí de una conferencia que dio hace años en la Asociación de Comerciantes. Mi finca en Campinas necesita reformas urgentes en la casa principal. Es un gran proyecto de restauración histórica. Necesito a alguien competente, y tengo la impresión de que usted necesita trabajo». Elena sintió una mezcla de desconfianza y desesperación. No conocía a ese hombre, desconocía sus verdaderas intenciones, pero al mismo tiempo, la mención de un proyecto real, una restauración, reavivó algo en ella que había permanecido dormido durante mucho tiempo: la pasión por la arquitectura. Antonio notó su vacilación y añadió: «No pido nada a cambio, solo un trabajo bien hecho. Mi propuesta es profesional, la mitad del pago por adelantado para que puedan organizarse, contrato formal, todo dentro de la ley. Y si me lo permiten, esta noche me gustaría invitarlas a cenar a usted y a su hija para que podamos hablar del proyecto con tranquilidad. Sin compromisos, solo una conversación profesional, y les prometo que al menos esta noche habrá flores en su mesa». Elena miró al hombre. Había algo en su postura, en su forma de hablar, que inspiraba confianza. No era la mirada oportunista de alguien que quisiera aprovecharse, sino la de alguien que realmente quería ayudar, y quizá, pensó Elena, también la de alguien que sabía lo que era la soledad. Respiró hondo. Su lado racional le gritaba que tuviera cuidado, que no confiara tan rápido, pero la parte desesperada de ella, la que necesitaba alimentar a su hija y pagar las facturas, le suplicaba que aceptara. «De acuerdo», dijo. «Finalmente, acepto hablar del proyecto». Antonio sonrió discretamente y sacó una tarjeta de visita del bolsillo del palé. «Mi chofer puede recogerlos a las 7 de la tarde. ¿Cuál es la dirección?» Elena dudó un instante antes de dar la dirección del apartamento en Pineiros. Antonio escribió en una pequeña libreta de cuero: «Nos vemos luego, entonces, y por favor, no se preocupe por la ropa. Será una cena informal». Asintió con una discreta reverencia a la antigua usanza y se dirigió hacia un coche negro aparcado en la esquina. Elena se quedó en la acera, con la tarjeta de visita en la mano. El nombre estaba grabado en oro: Antonio Sampaio de Albuquerque, Barón de Santana. Regresó a casa conmocionada. Al entrar en el apartamento, Beatriz estaba en el salón, rodeada de libros y notas. «Mamá, ¿recibiste la tela?» Elena miró a su hija y sintió un vuelco en el corazón. «No la recibí hoy, hija, pero algo pasó». Le contó sobre la reunión con Antonio, sobre la oferta de trabajo, sobre la cena. Los ojos de Beatriz se abrieron de par en par. «Barón, un barón de verdad, con título y todo». Elena esbozó una sonrisa cansada. «Sí, Es un título familiar. Pero lo importante es que ofrece un trabajo de verdad, Vía. Un proyecto de restauración es mi especialidad. Podría ser la oportunidad que hemos estado esperando. Beatriz se levantó del sofá y abrazó a su madre. Sabía que las cosas mejorarían. Mamá, eres buena en lo que haces. La gente se darán cuenta. Elena le devolvió el abrazo a su hija, pero por dentro seguía asustada. ¿Era real? ¿No era demasiado bueno para ser verdad? A las 7 en punto sonó el timbre. Elena y Beatriz ya estaban listas. Elena llevaba uno de los pocos vestidos bonitos que aún conservaba. Negro, sencillo, pero elegante. Beatriz vestía vaqueros y una blusa blanca. Al abrir la puerta, un caballero de traje, con el pelo blanco y la postura de un mayordomo, la saludó cortésmente. «Buenas noches, soy Sebastián, el chofer del señor Barón. Me ha pedido que las recoja». Bajaron del coche y entraron en un Mercedes negro, impecablemente limpio. Los asientos de cuero eran suaves. Beatriz lo miraba todo con los ojos muy abiertos. Elena intentaba mantener la compostura, pero también estaba impresionada. Hacía años que no se subía a un coche de esa categoría. Sebastián condujo con suavidad por las calles de Sao Paulo hasta llegar a un restaurante en Jardín Europa. No era un lugar ostentoso, pero sí claramente caro, discreto, elegante y frecuentado por la élite. Llegaron a Sao Paulo. Al entrar, Antonio ya los esperaba en una mesa reservada al fondo del salón. Se puso de pie al verlos acercarse. «Buenas noches, Elena. Y ella debe ser Beatriz». Le tendió la mano a la chica, quien la estrechó tímidamente. «Mucho gusto, Beatriz. Tu madre me comentó que te aceptaron en la USP para estudiar medicina. Enhorabuena, es todo un logro». Beatriz sonrió, aún tímida. «Gracias». Se sentaron. La mesa estaba decorada con un sencillo pero hermoso arreglo de rosas blancas y violetas. Elena se fijó en el detalle. Las flores, tal como lo prometió. La cena transcurrió tranquilamente. Antonio preguntó por los estudios de Beatriz, por sus planes para la universidad, por la carrera de Elena en arquitectura, por los proyectos que había realizado antes de jubilarse. Escuchó con genuina atención, hizo preguntas pertinentes. No era una conversación vacía, sino un interés real. Cuando llegó el plato principal, Antonio finalmente sacó el tema del trabajo. La finca Santana se encuentra en Campinas, a unos 90 kilómetros de aquí. La casa principal se construyó en... El edificio, que data de 1872, es un monumento histórico protegido y necesita una restauración urgente. El tejado está deteriorado y las estructuras de madera necesitan refuerzo. Quiero modernizar las instalaciones eléctricas y de fontanería sin alterar el carácter de la propiedad. Es un proyecto complejo. Necesito a alguien que entienda el patrimonio histórico y tenga la sensibilidad necesaria para preservar la esencia del lugar. Elena sintió un vuelco en el corazón. Era justo el tipo de proyecto con el que siempre había soñado. Tengo experiencia en restauración. Formé parte del equipo que trabajó en la renovación del Museo de la Lengua Portuguesa antes del incendio. Antonio asintió. Lo sé. He investigado su trabajo. Es usted competente. Por eso le hago esta propuesta. Sacó un sobre del bolsillo interior del palé y lo colocó sobre la mesa. Aquí tienes un contrato preliminar. Quiero que lo leas con atención, con un abogado si lo prefieres. La cantidad está especificada. La mitad se pagará por adelantado en cuanto firmemos. La otra mitad se deberá abonar al finalizar el proyecto, que calculo que durará 6 meses. Elena tomó el sobre con manos temblorosas, lo abrió y vio la cantidad. Era más de lo que ganaba en 1 año, cuando aún trabajaba. Palideció. Antonio notó su reacción. Sé que parece mucho, pero es un proyecto grande. Requerirá dedicación exclusiva. Tendrás que pasar temporadas en la finca, supervisar el trabajo, tratar con los proveedores, contratar mano de obra especializada. No es un trabajo sencillo. La cantidad es justa para lo que voy a exigir. Elena miró a Beatriz, que también tenía los ojos muy abiertos. «Mamá, ¿esto es real?» Elena volvió a mirar a Antonio. «¿Por qué haces esto? ¿Por qué yo? Antonio respiró hondo antes de responder. ¿Porque reconozco el talento? Porque creo que todo el mundo merece una segunda oportunidad y porque, si he de ser sincero, sé lo que es pasar por dificultades tras una pérdida. Perdí a mi esposa hace 5 años. Desde entonces la finca se ha convertido en un lugar vacío. Quiero restaurarla, darle nueva vida, y creo que usted es la persona indicada para ello. Había algo en su voz, una sinceridad cruda que conmovió a Elena. Volvió a mirar el contrato. Todo parecía profesional, serio, legítimo. «Acepto», dijo. «Por fin. Leeré el contrato con atención esta noche, y si todo está bien lo firmaré mañana». Antonio sonrió. «Estupendo. Entonces está hecho». Levantó su copa de vino, un brindis por el nuevo proyecto y por los nuevos comienzos. Elena también levantó su copa. Beatriz se excusó para brindar con zumo. Los tres chocaron sus copas. En ese momento, por primera vez en 2 años, Elena sintió que tal vez, solo tal vez, las cosas podrían mejorar. Cuando terminó la cena y Sebastián las llevó de vuelta a casa, Beatriz no paraba de hablar. «Mamá, vas a volver a trabajar, te vas a hacer lo que te gusta, y parece buena persona, ¿verdad?» Elena sonrió. «Sí, lo parece, pero vamos con calma, Vía. Leamos bien el contrato, hagámoslo todo bien. No quiero hacerme ilusiones». Pero en el fondo también tenía esperanza. Esa noche, después de que Beatriz se durmiera, Elena se quedó en la sala leyendo y releyendo el contrato. Todo parecía legítimo. Cláusulas claras, cantidades especificadas, un plazo definido. Incluso había una cláusula que estipulaba el pago del alojamiento y la comida durante sus estancias en la finca. Al día siguiente, llamó a la abogada que había llevado el divorcio y le pidió que revisara el documento. La abogada la llamó unas horas después. «Elena, todo está bien. Es un contrato serio, puedes firmarlo con tranquilidad. Este hombre es muy conocido, tiene una reputación intachable». Elena firmó el contrato y envió una copia escaneada al correo electrónico de Antonio. Esa misma tarde, recibió una transferencia bancaria. Era la primera mitad del pago, tal como se había especificado. Miró el extracto bancario y rompió a llorar. No era una lágrima de tristeza, sino de alivio, puro alivio. Podría pagar las facturas atrasadas, podría comprar comida, podría comprar la tela para el vestido de Beatriz, podría respirar tranquila. Esa misma tarde, Elena regresó a la tienda de telas. El señor Durbal estaba detrás del mostrador, atendiendo a otro cliente. Al ver entrar a Elena, puso cara de desdén. Ella volvió a suplicar. Elena se acercó al mostrador, abrió el bolso y sacó su tarjeta de crédito. «Vine a pagarlo al contado. Quiero 5 metros del satén azul marino que vi ayer, y también quiero ese tul francés que está en el escaparate. Todo al contado». El señor Durbal se quedó sin palabras. Elena pagó, tomó las telas envueltas y salió de la tienda sin mirar atrás. Al llegar a casa, Beatriz gritó de alegría. «Mamá, ¿lo compraste? Voy a tener mi vestido». Las dos pasaron la tarde eligiendo modelos, haciendo bocetos y planeando cada detalle. Era la primera vez en meses que reían juntas así, sin preocupaciones. La semana siguiente, Elena viajó a Campinas para visitar la finca Santana. Antonio mandó a Sebastián a recogerla temprano por la mañana. El viaje duró poco más de 1 hora. Al llegar, Elena quedó impresionada. La finca era inmensa. Los cafetales se extendían hasta donde alcanzaba la vista. La casa principal era un majestuoso edificio de estilo colonial, con paredes blancas y techo de tejas rojas francesas. Tenía amplias verandas, columnas, grandes ventanales con cristales antiguos, pero su estado de deterioro era evidente. El yeso se desmoronaba en algunos lugares. El tejado tenía tejas rotas. Los marcos de las ventanas estaban agrietados. Antonio la saludó en la veranda. «Bienvenida a Santana. Como puedes ver, hay mucho trabajo por delante». Elena recorrió la casa, tomando notas, sacando fotos, analizando cada detalle. La estructura era sólida, pero necesitaba cuidados. Era un proyecto ambicioso, pero también fascinante. Antonio la acompañó en la inspección. Conocía cada rincón de aquella casa. cada historia. Dijo que su abuela había nacido allí, que generaciones de la familia habían vivido entre esas paredes. Cuando mi esposa vivía, la casa rebosaba de vida. Le encantaba recibir visitas, organizar fiestas, cuidar los jardines. Después de su fallecimiento dejé de venir tanto. Dejé que todo se deteriorara, pero ahora quiero arreglarla. Quiero que Santana vuelva a ser lo que fue. Elena se detuvo y lo miró. No es solo la casa lo que quieres restaurar. Sí. Antonio sonrió con tristeza. No, no es solo la casa. Guardaron silencio un momento, mirando los campos a lo lejos. En los meses siguientes, Elena se volcó en el proyecto. Pasaba 3 días a la semana en la finca supervisando las obras, tratando con albañiles, carpinteros y electricistas. Los demás días volvía a Sao Paulo para estar con Beatriz y ocuparse de los trámites burocráticos, presupuestos, permisos de las autoridades de patrimonio histórico. Era un trabajo intenso, pero era feliz. Se sentía viva de nuevo, se sentía útil. Antonio siempre estaba presente. No se entrometía en su trabajo, pero lo seguía todo con interés. A veces pasaba horas hablando con Elena sobre las decisiones del proyecto, la elección de los materiales, los detalles históricos que debían conservarse. Poco a poco, su relación se fue estrechando. No era solo trabajo. Hablaban de la vida, de sus hijos, de las pérdidas que ambos habían sufrido. Antonio tenía 2 hijos adultos. Rafael, de 32 años, era ingeniero y vivía en Belo Horizonte. Luciana, de 28, era médica y estaba haciendo su residencia en cardiología en Sao Paulo. Ambos habían visitado la finca varias veces durante la construcción. Luciana y Elena congeniaron desde el principio. Rafael era más reservado, más educado. Un domingo, Antonio invitó a Elena y Beatriz a almorzar en la finca. Quiero que conozcan bien a mis hijos. Comamos en familia. Cuando llegaron, Rafael y Luciana ya estaban allí. La mesa estaba puesta en la veranda con un mantel de lino blanco, vajilla antigua y flores silvestres. Antonio había contratado a un cocinero local para que preparara un almuerzo tradicional: pollo de corral, arroz, frijoles tropeiro, col rizada salteada y polenta. El almuerzo transcurrió con tranquilidad. Luciana habló largo y tendido con Beatriz sobre medicina, le dio consejos sobre la facultad y comentaron los retos de la profesión. Rafael habló con Elena sobre ingeniería, intercambiaron ideas sobre estructuras y los desafíos de restaurar edificios antiguos. Antonio lo observaba todo con una sonrisa discreta. Después del almuerzo, mientras tomaban café, Luciana miró a su padre y le dijo: «La casa está quedando preciosa, papá. Elena está haciendo un trabajo increíble. Elegiste a la persona adecuada». Antonio miró a Elena. «Lo sé, la elegí». Había algo en su mirada, algo que Elena no lograba descifrar del todo. No era solo gratitud profesional, era algo más, pero aún temía malinterpretarlo, dejarse engañar. Después de aquel día, sus encuentros se hicieron más frecuentes. Antonio empezó a invitar a Elena a cenar cuando ella estaba en la finca. Hablaban de todo: literatura, música, política, la vida. Era un hombre culto, había viajado por el mundo, pero a la vez era sencillo, sin arrogancia. Le gustaba escuchar, hacía preguntas, se interesaba sinceramente por su historia. Un día, mientras paseaban por los jardines de la finca al atardecer, Antonio se detuvo y miró a Elena. «¿Puedo hacerte una pregunta personal?» Elena asintió. «Claro. ¿Piensas volver a tener una relación algún día? ¿O el divorcio te afectó tanto que lo descartaste?» Elena respiró hondo. Era una pregunta difícil. «No lo sé. Pasé tanto tiempo sintiéndome como si no valiera nada, como si el fracaso del matrimonio fuera solo culpa mía, que empecé a creérmelo. Creo que perdí la confianza en mí misma, y para ser sincera, también en los hombres». Antonio asintió. «Lo entiendo. Cuando perdí a mi esposa, yo también pensé que nunca volvería a conectar con nadie. Sentí como si una parte de mí hubiera muerto con ella. Pero el tiempo pasa y nos damos cuenta de que la vida sigue y que la soledad pesa demasiado como para llevarla solos». Permanecieron en silencio, caminando uno al lado del otro. Entonces Antonio dijo sin mirarla: Elena, me gustas, no solo profesionalmente. Disfruto de tu compañía. Disfruto hablando contigo. Me gusta tu visión del mundo. Sé que puede parecer precipitado que solo nos conozcamos desde hace unos meses, pero tengo 56 años. He vivido lo suficiente para saber cuándo algo es real. Elena se detuvo. El corazón le latía con fuerza. Antonio no sé qué decir. Finalmente la miró. No tienes que decir nada ahora. Solo quería que lo supieras. No te pido nada. No exijo nada. Solo soy sincero. Elena sintió que se le llenaban los ojos de lágrimas. Hacía tanto tiempo que nadie le hablaba así, con respeto, con cariño, sin exigencias, sin juegos. Tú también me gustas, dijo en voz baja, pero tengo miedo. Miedo de entregarme y volver a sufrir. Miedo de confiar y ser traicionada otra vez. Antonio dio un paso al frente y le tomó la mano con delicadeza. No te haré daño. No soy perfecto. Tengo mis defectos, mis dificultades, pero te amo. El respeto es la base de todo. Permanecieron allí, tomados de la mano, mientras el sol se ponía tras las montañas. Esa noche, cuando Elena regresó a Sao Paulo, le contó todo a Beatriz. La niña guardó silencio un instante y luego dijo, «Mamá, mereces ser feliz, mereces tener a alguien que te valore. Si eso es lo que sientes por el varón, no tengas miedo. Hazlo». Elena abrazó a su hija. «¿Cuándo has crecido tanto, Bea?», sonrió Beatriz. «Aprendí de ti, mamá. Me enseñaste a ser fuerte. Ahora déjame enseñarte a ser feliz de nuevo». En las semanas siguientes, la relación entre Elena y Antonio evolucionó con naturalidad. No tenían prisa. Cenaban juntos, conversaban durante horas, paseaban por los jardines y tomaban café en las frías tardes de junio. Antonio era un caballero respetuoso y jamás se extralimitaba. Poco a poco, Elena bajó la guardia y se permitió sentir de nuevo. Un día Luciana buscó a Elena para hablar. Estaban solas en la cocina de la casa de campo, tomando el té. «Elena, ¿puedo ser sincera contigo?» «Claro que sí, Luciana. ¿Qué pasa?» «Me alegra tanto ver a mi padre así. Estaba tan retraído desde que murió mamá. Parecía que simplemente actuaba por inercia, viviendo en piloto automático. Pero en los últimos meses ha vuelto a sonreír. Y sé que es gracias a ti». Elena se quedó sin palabras. Luciana continuó. «Sé que todavía se están conociendo, que todo es nuevo, pero quería que supieras que Rafael y yo lo aprobamos. Eres una mujer increíble, y si mi padre te eligió, es porque vio algo especial en ti». Elena sintió que se le llenaban los ojos de lágrimas. «Gracias, Luciana. Esto significa mucho para mí». Se abrazaron. Era la aprobación que Elena ni siquiera sabía que esperaba. Cuando el proyecto de restauración entró en su recta final, Elena y Antonio ya eran pareja. No lo habían anunciado oficialmente, pero sus allegados ya lo sabían. Sebastián trataba a Elena como si fuera la nueva dueña de la finca. Los empleados la respetaban. Luciana y Rafael la incluían en sus planes familiares, y Beatriz adoraba a Antonio. El Barón trataba a la joven como si fuera su propia hija. Le pagaba la matrícula en la USP, Universidad de Sao Paulo, le compraba los libros y le daba una mensualidad para que no tuviera que trabajar mientras estudiaba. Elena intentó negarse, pero Antonio fue firme. «Beatriz es tu hija, y si estoy contigo también es mi responsabilidad. Así funciona la familia». Elena nunca había conocido a un hombre así. Generoso sin ser entrometido, protector sin ser controlador, presente sin ser asfixiante. Era todo lo que Gustavo nunca había sido. Un día, cuando la restauración estaba casi terminada, Antonio llamó a Elena para hablar en la biblioteca de la finca. Era una habitación espaciosa, con estanterías de madera que llegaban hasta el techo, sillones de cuero y una chimenea. Había encendido el fuego porque hacía frío. «Elena, necesito hacerte una pregunta importante». Elena sintió que el corazón le latía con fuerza. «¿Qué pasa?» Antonio se arrodilló frente a ella. Literalmente se arrodilló. «Elena, sé que esto puede parecer una locura. Solo nos conocemos desde hace 7 meses, pero tengo 56 años. No tengo tiempo para seguir postergándolo. Te amo. Amo todo de ti. tu fuerza, tu inteligencia, tu sensibilidad. Amo cómo cuidas de Beatriz. Amo cómo restauraste no solo esta casa, sino también mi vida». Elena miró al hombre arrodillado frente a ella, sosteniendo la caja de terciopelo, y sintió que el mundo se detenía. Las lágrimas corrían por su rostro sin control. «Antonio, yo. No sé si estoy lista. Todavía tengo mucho miedo». Se levantó y se sentó a su lado en el sillón, tomándole las manos entre las suyas. «Sé que tienes miedo. Sé que has pasado por cosas horribles, pero Elena, no soy Gustavo. Te respeto, te admiro, te amo de verdad. No quiero controlarte, quiero hacerte feliz. Y si necesitas más tiempo, esperaré. No hay prisa. Solo quería que supieras lo que siento». Elena se secó las lágrimas y lo miró a los ojos, esos ojos sinceros y honestos. «Yo también te amo, Antonio, de verdad. Pero primero necesito hablar con Beatriz. Ella es mi prioridad. Necesito asegurarme de que esté de acuerdo con esto». Antonio sonrió. «Claro, tiene todo el sentido, y que sepas que, sea cual sea la decisión, la respetaré». Elena regresó a São Paulo al día siguiente con el corazón apesadumbrado. Esa noche llamó a Beatriz a la sala para hablar. «Hija, tengo que contarte algo importante. Antonio me ha pedido matrimonio». Los ojos de Beatriz se abrieron de par en par y luego sonrió con esa amplia sonrisa. «Mamá, qué maravilla. Has dicho que sí». Elena negó con la cabeza. «Todavía no. Quería hablar contigo primero. Esto cambia mucho las cosas, Vía. Si acepto, viviremos en la granja. Tendrás que ir a la universidad todos los días o vivir en un piso compartido entre semana. Nuestras vidas cambiarán por completo». Beatriz tomó la mano de su madre. «Mamá, pasaste 2 años cuidándome, sacrificándote por mí, sufriendo en silencio para que yo no sufriera. Ahora te toca ser feliz. Antonio es un buen hombre. Te hace feliz, lo veo en tus ojos. Y en cuanto a la universidad ya veremos. Hay autobuses, hay trenes. Puedo compartir una residencia con otras chicas. No hay problema». Elena abrazó con fuerza a su hija. «¿Cuándo te volviste tan madura, Beatriz Río? Tuve una maestra maravillosa». El fin de semana siguiente Elena regresó a la finca. Antonio la recibió ansioso en el porche. Habló con Beatriz. Elena asintió sonriendo. Hablé con ella y me dio la respuesta que necesitaba oír. «Así que, Antonio Sampaio de Albuquerque, barón de Santana, acepto casarme contigo». Antonio la alzó en brazos y la hizo girar por el porche, riendo como Elena nunca lo había visto. Al bajarla la besó por primera vez, un beso delicado y respetuoso, pero lleno de promesas. «Vamos a hacerlo como es debido», dijo. «Quiero una boda religiosa de verdad, con toda la familia. Quiero que todos sepan que eres mi esposa». Los preparativos de la boda duraron 3 meses. Antonio insistió en hacerlo todo en la finca. Contrató a una organizadora de eventos para que se encargara de los detalles, pero le dio a Elena total libertad para elegirlo todo. «Quiero que sea a tu manera, a nuestra manera». Elena eligió una boda elegante, pero sin extravagancias. Invitaron a 120 personas, entre familiares y amigos íntimos. La ceremonia se celebraría en la capilla de la granja, que también había sido restaurada durante el proyecto. La recepción tendría lugar en los jardines, con carpas blancas, luces colgantes y flores por doquier. Beatriz sería la dama de honor. Luciana y Rafael también formarían parte de la ceremonia. Durante los preparativos, Elena tuvo que lidiar con algunas situaciones incómodas. Gustavo, su exmarido, se enteró de la boda a través de conocidos comunes. La llamó por primera vez en meses. «¿Así que es verdad que te vas a casar con un varón?» Elena sintió que le hervía la sangre. «Sí, Gustavo, me caso, y no es asunto tuyo». Él se rió con ese sarcasmo que ella detestaba. «Astuta, Elena? Esta vez has conseguido un hombre verdaderamente rico. Enhorabuena». Elena respiró hondo para no estallar. «Gustavo, a diferencia de ti, Antonio es un hombre de principios. Me respeta, me valora, me quiere de verdad, cosas que tú nunca hiciste. Y ahora, si me disculpas, tengo cosas más importantes que hacer que perder el tiempo hablando contigo». Y colgó. Beatriz, que había escuchado la conversación, aplaudió. Lo has clavado, mamá. Se merecía oírlo hace mucho. Otra situación delicada involucraba a algunas personas del antiguo círculo social de Helena. Cuando empezaron a circular las invitaciones de boda, algunas mujeres que le habían dado la espalda tras el divorcio ahora querían retomar el contacto. Llamaron, enviaron mensajes disculpándose, diciendo que siempre habían sido sus amigas. Helena sabía que era mentira, que solo les interesaba. Fue educada, pero firme. Les agradeció los mensajes, pero no reanudó ninguna amistad. Eran las que no estaban de mi lado. When I needed you, you won't be by my side now that I'm okay, she told Beatrice. The only exception was Mariana, a college friend who had always kept in touch, even during the worst times. Mariana had visited her several times at her apartment in Pinheiros. She had brought food, offered financial help that Helena refused out of pride, but which she never forgot. Mariana was one of the first to receive an invitation and accepted with emotion. Finally, you're going to be happy again, Helena. You deserve it so much. The wedding day dawned sunny, but with a cool September breeze. The farm was impeccable. The restoration work had been completed the previous week. The main house was radiant, with its white walls gleaming in the sun, the renovated windows, the new roof. The gardens were in bloom, roses, hydrangeas, jasmine. The perfume filled the air. The chapel was decorated with white and green arrangements, candles everywhere. Helena woke up early that morning. She had slept in one of the farm's guest rooms, following the tradition of not seeing the groom. Before the ceremony, Luciana went to the room to help her get ready. She brought a team of makeup artists and hairdressers. "Helena, you look beautiful," Luciana said, her eyes welling up with tears. "My father is a very lucky man." Helena smiled. "I'm the lucky one, Luciana. Your father is a wonderful man." The wedding dress was simple but elegant, a silk satin gown in ivory with a discreet neckline, 3/4 sleeves, and a short train. Helena had chosen something timeless that matched the atmosphere of the farm. Her hair was styled in a low bun, with a few loose strands framing her face. The makeup was soft and natural. Beatrice entered the room, already dressed as a bridesmaid. She wore a long serenity blue dress that Helena had sewn especially for her. "Mom, you look perfect," the girl said emotionally. "I'm so happy for you." The two hugged, crying. Sebastian came to fetch Helena to take her to the chapel. He wore an impeccable suit, and his eyes shone with emotion. "Mrs. Helena, it is an honor to accompany you on this day. Mr. Barón is the happiest man in the world." When Helena descended from the house towards the chapel with Beatrice holding the train of her dress, the guests were already all in their places. The music began to play. It was an instrumental version of Ave Maria. Helena entered the chapel and saw Antonio at the front, next to the priest. He was wearing a navy blue suit, a silver tie, and his eyes were fixed on her. When she approached, he extended his hand and whispered, "You look beautiful." The ceremony was moving. The priest spoke about commitment, about mature love, about second chances. He spoke about how God puts people in our path when we need them most, about how true love is that which respects, cares, and builds together. When the time came for the vows, Antonio held Helena's hands and said, his voice breaking, "Helena, when I saw you being unjustly humiliated that day, I recognized in you a strength that impressed me. But over these months I've discovered so much more. I've discovered a brilliant, talented, courageous woman. I've discovered someone who made me believe in life again, in love, in happiness. I promise to respect you every day. I promise to support you in all your dreams. I promise to build with you a life full of love, happiness, and true partnership. I love you today, and I will love you always." Helena had also prepared her vows, but when the time came to speak, emotion almost prevented her. She took a deep breath and said, "Antonio, you appeared in my life when I thought everything was lost. You gave me trouble when no one else trusted me. You gave me respect when I no longer respected myself. You gave me love when I thought I didn't deserve to be loved. You taught me that it's possible to start over, that it's possible to trust again, that it's possible to be happy after pain. I promise to be your companion, your partner, your best friend. I promise to take care of you, your family, our family. I love you, and will love you for the rest of my life." There wasn't a dry eye in the chapel. Even Raphael, always so reserved, had red eyes. When the priest declared them married, and that Antonio could kiss the bride, the guests applauded standing. Antonio kissed Helena tenderly, and then hugged her tightly. "Thank you for agreeing to start over with me," he whispered in her ear. The reception in the gardens was beautiful. The tables were decorated with beige linen tablecloths, arrangements of wildflowers, candles. The food was traditional Minas Gerais cuisine, prepared by local cooks. Chicken with okra, pork loin with tutu, a type of bean stew, carretero rice, salads, homemade sweets, all made with care. There was a band playing live music, a repertoire that mixed Brazilian classics with romantic boleros. Helena and Antonio opened the dance floor. They danced closely, looking into each other's eyes, while the band played Você é Linda by Caetano Veloso. It was a magical moment. Then came the speeches. Luciana spoke on behalf of Antonio's children, saying she was happy to see her father smile again, that Helena was a special woman, and that the family was complete again. Beatriz also gave a speech. She thanked her stepfather for taking care of her and her mother, for giving them a new life, a new hope. She said she was proud of her mother, of the strength she always had, of the courage to start over. Raphael toasted the couple's health and wished them many years of happiness. As night fell, the hanging lights in the gardens were turned on. It was a fairy tale setting. Helena and Antonio circulated among the guests, chatting and thanking everyone for their presence. At one point, Helena saw Mariana talking to Beatriz. Her friend motioned for her to come closer. "Helena, I just wanted to tell you that I'm so happy for you. You deserve all the good things that are happening, and never doubt that, okay? You've always been amazing. I just forgot that for a while." The two hugged. As the party was winding down, it was past midnight. The guests began to say goodbye. Antonio and Helena were alone in the gardens, watching the cleaning crew tidying up. "Tired?" he asked. "Exhausted," she replied, smiling but happy, very happy. They walked hand in hand to the main house. They went up to the master bedroom, which had been specially prepared for them. There were flowers everywhere, lit candles, soft music playing. It was romantic without being over the top. Helena looked around and felt immense gratitude. "Thank you, Antonio, for everything." He kissed her. "No need to thank me. We both deserve this happiness." The first few months of marriage were a time of adjustment. Helena officially moved to the farm, bringing Beatriz with her. The girl had decided to take the train to USP, University of São Paulo, every day, at least for the first semester. Antonio had offered to buy an apartment in São Paulo for Beatriz to live in during the week, but the girl preferred to stay with her family. "I'm not ready to live alone yet, Mum. I prefer to go back and forth every day." Helena was relieved. She wasn't ready to be separated from her daughter either. The routine on the farm was unlike anything Helena had ever experienced before. She woke up early, had coffee with Antonio on the veranda, accompanied him on visits to the coffee plantations and chatted with the employees. In the afternoon, she worked on new architectural projects. Antonio had recommended her to other farmers in the region who needed renovations, and the work kept coming in. At night they had dinner as a family, talked, watched a movie, or simply sat on the veranda looking at the stars. It was a peaceful but fulfilling life. It was true happiness. Beatriz adapted well to her new reality, made friends with some young people in the area, and began spending weekends in the city of Campinas with her college friends. She was happy, carefree, and healthy. Helena watched her daughter grow and become a confident woman. One day, about 6 months after the wedding, Helena began to experience morning sickness. At first, she thought it was something she had eaten, but when the nausea persisted for a week, she began to suspect something was wrong. She bought a pregnancy test at the pharmacy and took it secretly. The result was positive. She was pregnant. Helena was in shock. She was 44 years old. She hadn't expected to get pregnant at that age. She was afraid of the complications, the risks, but at the same time felt a profound joy. A child with Antonio. A child who would be the fruit of the love they had built together. She told Antonio that same night. He stood still for a few seconds, processing the information. Then his face transformed into a huge smile. A baby. Our baby. Helena nodded, her eyes filled with tears. Yes, our baby. Antonio picked her up in his arms and spun her around the room. I'm going to be a father again. He was 57 years old, but at that moment he seemed like a boy. He immediately called Luciana and Raphael to tell them. They were both surprised but happy. Luciana, being a doctor, warned about the care Helena would need to take because of her age. I'll be monitoring you personally, Helena. We'll do everything right, all the exams, all the prenatal care. This baby will be born healthy. Beatrice was thrilled when she found out. I'm going to have a little brother. She had already started calling Antonio Dad, and now the family was getting even bigger. The pregnancy was uneventful in the first few months. Helena followed all the medical advice and had all the exams. Luciana followed everything closely. At 19 weeks, they discovered it was a boy. Antonio wanted to throw a party to reveal the baby's gender. He invited the whole family and some close friends. They set up a structure in the farm's gardens with balloons, blue and pink decorations, and a surprise box that would reveal the color. When they opened the box and the blue balloons flew out, everyone shouted and applauded. Antonio hugged Helena tightly. A boy? We're having a boy. They decided to name the baby Gabriel. Gabriel Sampaio Cavalcante de Albuquerque, a name that united the two families. The months went by. Helena's belly grew. She continued working, but at a slower pace. Antonio was super protective. He wouldn't let her exert herself. He was always worried. Helena found it funny. He was much more anxious in this pregnancy than he probably had been with his other children. When Helena entered her 8th month, Luciana insisted that she stay in São Paulo near the hospital. Antonio rented a furnished apartment in Pinheiros, near the Syrio-Libanese hospital, where the birth would take place. He and Helena spent the last month of the pregnancy there with Beatrice, keeping them company whenever she could. Raphael and Luciana visited constantly. It was a time of expectation, of good anxiety, of preparation. The baby's room on the farm was ready. Light wood furniture, blue and white decor, a complete layette that Helena had meticulously chosen every piece of. It was on a cold, cloudy June morning that Helena began to feel contractions. Antonio was beside her in the apartment. He turned pale. Is it now? Is it now? He asked nervously. Helena, despite the pain, laughed. Yes, love, it's now. Call the driver. They went to the hospital. Luciana was already there waiting. She had managed to get time off from her shift, precisely to be with her stepmother during the delivery. The labor lasted 8 hours. 8 intense hours of pain, fear, and anticipation. Antonio stayed by Helena's side the whole time, holding her hand, wiping the sweat from her forehead, whispering words of encouragement. You are strong, love. You can do it. I'm here with you. When Gabriel was finally born, weighing 400 grang, with dark hair and powerful lungs, Helena cried with relief and happiness. Antonio cut the umbilical cord with his hands, trembling with emotion. When he held his son in his arms for the first time, he also cried. He's so small, he's perfect. Thank you, Helena. Thank you for giving me this gift. Beatrice arrived at the hospital a few hours later. When she saw her little brother for the first time, she was enchanted. He's beautiful, Mom, just like Daddy Antonio. Can I hold him? Helena carefully passed the baby to her daughter. Beatrice held Gabriel with all the care in the world, with pure love in her eyes. Raphael and Luciana also met their little brother that day. Raphael, always more reserved, was emotional. Welcome to the family, Gabriel. Luciana took the baby in her arms and examined him with a medical eye. He's perfect. All vital signs are excellent. You did a good job, Helena. The first few days with Gabriel were intense. Helena was exhausted, but happy. Antonio was a present father. He woke up in the middle of the night to help change diapers and rocked the baby when he cried. She did everything with a gentleness that contrasted with his size and age. When they were finally discharged and returned to the farm, it was as if the house had come to life again. Gabriel slept in his crib next to the couple's bed. He cried a little. He was a calm baby. Beatrice helped with everything. She changed diapers, gave baths, sang lullabies that Helena had sung to her when she was little. The girl was on break from college, and took the opportunity to spend more time at home taking care of her brother. Raphael and Luciana came to visit every weekend. They brought gifts, clothes, toys. The farm was always full of people, laughter, and life. It was everything Antonio had wished for when he decided to restore the house. The months went by. Gabriel grew quickly. He learned to smile, to babble, to recognize the faces of his family. When he was 6 months old, he was already trying to sit up. At 6 months old, he crawled all over the house, exploring every corner, making a mess. Helena returned to work when Gabriel was 4 months old, gradually at a relaxed pace. She only accepted projects she could do remotely, without needing to travel much. She wanted to be present in her son's life. Antonio fully supported her. "You don't have to work if you don't want to. We have the financial means for it." But Helena insisted, "I like to work, it makes me feel good. I'm just adjusting my pace to be able to balance everything." Beatrice finished her first year of medical school with excellent grades. She was loving the course. She was sure she had chosen the right profession. During the holidays, she helped on the farm, played with Gabriel, and accompanied her mother on her architecture projects. One day, she came home with a different smile on her face. "Mum, can I tell you something?" "Of course, daughter, what is it?" "I met a boy. He's also studying medicine. He's in his 3rd year. He's an anatomy teaching assistant. We started talking and I think I'm starting to like him." Helena smiled. "What's his name?" Pedro Alcantara. He's from Santos. Lives in a student residence here in São Paulo. He's studious, polite, a good person. I want to bring him here to meet you and Daddy Antonio." Beatrice had started calling Antonio Daddy Antonio soon after the wedding to differentiate him from his biological father. But the affection was real. For her, Antonio was her real father, the one who was present, the one who cared. "Of course you can bring him, daughter. We'd love to meet him." Beatrice brought Pedro the following week. He was a tall, thin boy with glasses, shy but friendly. He greeted everyone politely, brought a gift for Gabriel, a teddy bear. He talked to Antonio about college, about plans for the future. He wanted to do a residency in surgery. Antonio liked the boy. "He's serious, hard-working, a good match for Bea." Helena agreed. And most importantly, Beatrice was happy. When Gabriel turned 1, they had a party at the farm. They invited the whole family, some friends, children from the region. They set up inflatable toys in the gardens, hired entertainers. They made a huge cake, decorated with a farm theme. Gabriel was enchanted by so many people, so many colors, so much noise. He was still walking a little unsteadily, but he was walking. He ran after the balloons, laughed when the entertainers clowned around. It was a happy day. Helena looked around, seeing all those people gathered, celebrating the life of her son and Antonio, and felt immense gratitude. Who would have thought that 3 years ago I was being humiliated in a store without money to buy food, thinking my life was over? And now I'm here with a beautiful family, with a wonderful husband, with happy children, with a life I never imagined having. Antonio noticed her look. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking about how life turns around, how everything has changed." Antonio hugged her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "It changed for both of us. You restored not only the farm, Helena, you restored my life." The years went by. Gabriel grew strong and healthy. He was a bright, talkative child, full of energy. She loved playing in the coffee plantations, helping the farmhands ride horses with her father. Antonio taught her everything about the farm, about working the land, about the importance of respecting nature. Beatrice graduated from medical school with honors. She was accepted into a pediatric residency program at the hospital. She was seriously dating Pedro, who had been accepted into a surgical residency program at the same hospital. They lived in separate shared houses, but spent all their free time together. One day, 2 years after they started dating, Pedro proposed to Beatrice. He proposed at the farm, in front of the whole family, knelt down, took out the ring, said he loved her and wanted to spend his life with her. Beatrice said, yes, crying with happiness. Helena and Antonio celebrated. Another wedding in the family, another joy. Beatrice and Pedro's wedding was beautiful, simple but moving. They held it in the same chapel on the farm, where Helena and Antonio had been married. The tradition was being established. The farm was the place for the family's great moments. Gabriel, 4 years old at the time, was the page boy. He entered with the rings, serious, focused, trying not to drop the little cushion. Everyone thought it was cute. When Beatrice and Pedro moved into a small apartment near the hospital, Helena's heart ached. It was her daughter truly leaving home, but at the same time she was happy. Beatrice had found a good man. She was building her life, fulfilling her dreams. It's the natural cycle of life, Antonio said, hugging Helena. She's grown up, she's ready, and she'll stay close to us. She won't disappear. And she didn't. Beatrice visited the farm every month, called often, shared news from her new home, and asked her mother for advice. Rafael, Antonio's eldest son, had also gotten married in the meantime. His wife, Camila, was an engineer like him. They lived in Belo Horizonte, but came to the farm for holidays and vacations. They had a daughter, Laura, who was a few months younger than Gabriel. The two children played together when the family gathered. Luciana remained focused on her medical career. She had become a renowned cardiologist, working shifts in private hospitals and seeing patients in her own practice. She had no plans to marry anytime soon. She said she was happy being single, focused on her profession, but she had enormous affection for her nephews, especially Gabri, the youngest in the family. Life on the farm continued peacefully. Helena continued working in architecture, now with a solid client base. She had even opened a small office in Campinas in partnership with another architect from the region. The projects were varied: houses, commercial establishments, restorations. She was professionally fulfilled. Antonio continued managing the farm with the same dedication as always. The coffee plantations were producing well. The property was profitable, but he was already thinking about passing the baton to his children. He was talking to Rafael about the possibility of him taking over management in the coming years. Gabriel was 7 years old when Helena became pregnant again. It was a complete surprise. She was 49 years old. She thought it was no longer possible, but it happened. When she found out, she was scared. The risks were even greater at that age. She talked to Luciana, who was direct. "Mom, I'm not going to lie, it's a high-risk pregnancy, but we'll monitor everything closely. You're healthy. You have no history of problems. We'll make it work." Antonio was worried, but also happy. If God is sending another child, it's because we are able to take care of them. We'll do everything right. The 9 months were more difficult than the first time. Helena had stronger nausea, greater fatigue, swelling in her legs, but she followed all the medical advice, rested when necessary, and took care of herself like never before. Gabriel was excited about the idea of having a little brother or sister. He helped his mother with everything. He brought water, arranged the pillows, and made drawings to decorate the baby's room. He was a sweet, affectionate boy who had learned the value of family from his parents. When they found out it was a girl, Gabriel was even more excited. "I'm going to have a little sister to protect," he said proudly. Antonio was radiant. After 3 sons throughout his life, he would finally have a daughter. They decided to name the baby Clara. Clara Sampaio Cavalcante de Albuquerque, a delicate name that meant light, clarity, and hope. The birth was more complicated. Helena had to have a cesarean section on medical advice. Luciana personally accompanied everything along with the obstetric team. There were tense moments, but everything went well. Clara was born healthy, weighing 2,900 dray, small but strong. When Antonio held his daughter in his arms for the first time, at 62 years old, he cried like he had never cried before. "My little princess, my Clara, thank you, my God." "Thank you, Helena." Gabriel met his sister at the hospital and fell in love immediately. "Can I hold her, Mom?" "Very carefully, son." Helena passed the baby to the boy, who held her with all the delicacy in the world. "Hi, Clara. I'm your brother, Gabriel. I'll take care of you forever." The first months with Clara were challenging. Helena was more tired than the last time. Recovery from the C-section was slower, but she had plenty of help. Antonio was always there. Gabriel helped in any way he could. Beatrice came to spend weekends helping. Luciana visited the farm several times a week to check if everything was all right with her sister and stepmother. Even Rafael and Camila came from Belo Horizonte to spend a week helping. It was a strong support network, a real family. Clara was a more fussy baby than Gabriel had been. She woke up several times during the night, had colic, was more sensitive, but she was also very affectionate. She loved being held, loved being rocked, and calmed down when she heard her father's or mother's voice. Gabriel became the most protective brother there was. He wouldn't let anyone hold his sister unsupervised. When she cried, he ran to call his mother. When she slept, he stood guard near the crib. Antonio joked that his son had become a miniature bodyguard. The years continued to pass. Clara was growing, developing, learning to sit, crawl, and walk. By the age of 2, she was already speaking in complete sentences and had a strong personality. She was stubborn, determined, and didn't take no for an easy answer. "She's just like her mother's," Antonio joked. Helena laughed. "Maybe, but she's also just like you. She has that determined way about her, like the Albuquerque family." Gabriel was 9 years old and beginning to show an interest in his studies. He was a good student, especially in math and science. Antonio already dreamed that his son could pursue a career in farm management or perhaps agronomy, but he made it clear that the boy would be free to choose his own path. Beatriz was finishing her medical residency. She and Pedro had announced they were trying to have a child. Helena was going to be a grandmother. The news filled her heart with joy. Luciana had been promoted to head of the cardiology department at the hospital where she worked. She was at the peak of her career, recognized and respected. Rafael officially took over the management of the farm, working side by side with his father, learning the details of the business. One Sunday afternoon, the whole family was gathered at the farm. It was Antonio's birthday. He was turning 65. Everyone was there. Rafael with Camilla and little Laura, now 5 years old. Luciana, who had brought her new boyfriend, a doctor who worked with her. Beatriz and Pedro, who had just discovered they were 3 months pregnant. Gabriel and Clara playing in the garden with their cousin Laura. Helena looked at the scene and felt her heart overflow. Antonio approached from behind and hugged her. "Do you remember that afternoon on Augusta Street more than 10 years ago?" Helena nodded. "How could I forget? It changed my life." Antonio kissed the top of her head. "It changed mine too. You brought life to this house. You brought joy, love, family. Look at everything we've built together." Helena turned in his arms. "It wasn't just you who saved me that day, Antonio. I saved you too. We saved each other." He smiled. "That's true. We were 2 lonely people who met at the right time." Beatriz approached the couple with Pedro by her side. "Dad, Mom, we want to make an announcement." Everyone stopped what they were doing and came closer. Beatriz held Pedro's hand and said emotionally, "We're pregnant. You're going to be grandparents." The whole family erupted in celebration. Helena hugged her daughter tightly, crying with happiness. Gabriel and Clara jumped for joy. "I'm going to be an uncle, Gabriel," she shouted. "I'm going to be an aunt," Clara repeated, not quite understanding, but also excited. Antonio hugged Pedro. "Congratulations, my son. You and Bea are going to be wonderful parents." The afternoon continued in a festive atmosphere. They ate cake, sang happy birthday, talked about plans, about the future, about the baby that was coming. As the sun began to set, painting the sky orange and pink, Helena asked to take a picture of the whole family together. Sebastião, who continued working with them even after so many years, took several photos, all together on the veranda of the main house, smiling, embracing. It was a record of that perfect moment. That night, after everyone had left and the children were asleep, Helena and Antonio were alone on the veranda, as was their custom. "Are you happy?" he asked. "More than I could have imagined," she replied. "Sometimes I wake up in the morning and still can't believe this is my life, that this is our life." Antonio held her hand. "Me too. There were days after I lost my first wife when I thought I would never be happy again. But you proved to me that it's possible to start over, that it's possible to love again, that it's possible to build a new family without forgetting the past." They remained silent for a while, simply enjoying the starry night. Then Helena said, "Do you know what I learned from all this? That the flowers on the table weren't just a nice gesture at that first dinner. They were a symbol." Antonio looked at her curiously. "A symbol of what?" "That life can be beautiful again. that even in the most difficult moments, when we think everything is lost, there is still beauty waiting for us. The flowers represented hope. They represented a new beginning. They represented the possibility of better days. Antonio smiled. "You've always been more poetic than me, but you're right. The flowers were a promise, and I've kept that promise every day since then." Helena rested her head on his shoulder. "And I will continue to keep it for the rest of my life." The following months were filled with anticipation. Beatriz was pregnant, her belly growing radiant with happiness. Pedro had passed a competitive exam to become a doctor at a public hospital and was financially stable. They had bought a larger 2-bedroom apartment, preparing for the baby's arrival. Helena followed everything closely, gave advice, helped with the baby's layette, and was present. Gabriel and Clara were excited about the idea of having a cousin or a cousin to play with. Gabriel, especially, was proud that he was going to be an uncle before he even turned 10. On the farm, things were also going well. Rafael was taking on more and more responsibilities in management, and Antonio was gradually stepping back, enjoying more time with his family. He was 65 years old, had worked his whole life, and now wanted to enjoy his grandchildren, travel with Helena, and live more peacefully. One afternoon, Helena received an unexpected call. It was the secretary of a large architecture firm in São Paulo. "Are you Helena Cavalcante de Albuquerque?" "Yes, that's me. I'm calling on behalf of Montenegro and Associates. They would like to talk to you about a partnership proposal. They are expanding their restoration and historical heritage area and recognize you as a reference in the field." Helena was surprised. It was one of the largest architecture firms in the country. Working with them would be a huge leap in her career. She scheduled a meeting for the following week. When she told Antonio, he was thrilled. "It's an incredible opportunity, darling. You deserve this recognition, but what about it?" "The distance. The office is in São Paulo. I'll have to travel more." Antonio shrugged. "We'll figure it out. The important thing is that you're being valued for your work. You can't let this chance pass you by." The meeting went very well. They offered Helena a junior partnership with profit sharing, autonomy to choose the restoration projects she wanted to work on, and her own team. It was a really tempting offer. Helena asked for some time to think and talk to her family. That evening she gathered everyone in the living room, Antonio, Gabriel, and Clara. "Kids, Mommy received a very good job offer, but it will require me to travel to São Paulo more often. I'll be there a few days a week. How would you feel about that?" Gabriel, who was almost 10 years old, thought for a moment. "Mum, you've always supported our dreams. Now it's our turn to support yours. If that's what you want, go for it." "We'll be fine here with Daddy." Clara, at only 4 years old, was more direct. "But you'll come back, right, Mum?" "I always come back, my daughter. Always," Antonio added. "We're here to support you. We always have been. Do what your heart tells you." Helena accepted the proposal. She started working as a partner at the Montenegro office, managing large restoration projects in São Paulo and the surrounding area. She spent 3 days a week in São Paulo, staying in a flat, and returned to the farm on the other days. It was tiring, but rewarding. She was at the peak of her career at 51, proving that it's never too late to start over, to grow, to achieve. Beatrice entered her 9th month of pregnancy. She was huge, anxious, but happy. One Saturday morning she went into labor. Pedro called Helena, who was at the farm. "Mother-in-law, I think it's now. Bia is having regular contractions. Let's go to the hospital." Helena and Antonio immediately got in the car and went to São Paulo. They arrived at the hospital 2 hours later. Beatriz was already in the delivery room. Helena wanted to go in to watch, but Beatriz asked that it be just Pedro. "I want this to be a moment just for us, Mom, but you'll meet your grandson as soon as he's born." It had been 5 hours of labor. Helena stayed in the waiting room, nervous, pacing back and forth. Antonio tried to calm her down. "Relax, love. Bia is strong. Everything is going well." Luciana was also on duty at the hospital and gave constant updates. "Everything is under control. The baby is well positioned. It won't be long now." Finally, they heard the cry, a strong, healthy cry. Helena felt tears welling up. Antonio hugged her. "You're a grandmother now." A few minutes later, Pedro came out of the room with a huge smile. "It's a boy, 5 kilos. Perfect. Bia is fine. Do you want to come in to meet him?" Helena entered the room and saw Beatrice lying on the bed, tired but radiant, holding a small blue bundle in her arms. "Mom, come meet your grandson." Helena approached and looked at that small face. Her eyes were closed, her little mouth making sucking motions. She felt an emotion unlike anything she had ever felt before. It was her grandson. Blood of her blood. "He's beautiful, Bea. Perfect. What are you going to name him?" Beatrice looked at Pedro, who nodded. "Antonio. We're going to name him Antonio in honor of his grandfather." Antonio, who had just entered the room, froze. His voice came out choked. "You're going to give him my name?" Beatrice smiled. "Of course, Dad, you're the best father I could have. You're not my biological father, but you're my real father, the man who raised me, who took care of me, who loved me. I want my son to have your name." Antonio approached the bed and kissed Beatrice's forehead. "Thank you, daughter. This means everything to me." He picked up his grandson and looked at that little face. "Welcome to the world, Antonio Cavalcante Alcantara. You have a family that loves you very much." When Helena called Gabriel and Clara to tell them that their cousin had, when he was born, they both shouted with joy. "I want to meet him," Gabriel said. "Tomorrow we'll take you to the hospital," the mother promised. Beatrice and little Antonio were discharged 2 days later. Helena helped her daughter in the first few days at home, teaching her how to bathe her, how to change her diaper, how to deal with colic, with crying, with all the doubts of a first-time mother. "Bea, you're doing everything right. Trust yourself. You're a wonderful mother." Beatrice looked at her mother with eyes full of tears of tiredness and gratitude. "Thank you for everything, Mum, for being strong when I was a child, for giving me a safe home, for introducing me to Dad Antonio, for building this beautiful family. I wouldn't be who I am today without you." Helena hugged her daughter. "And I wouldn't be who I am without you, Bea. You have always been my strength, my reason to fight." Life followed its natural course. Little Antonio grew and developed. Gabriel and Clara loved playing with their cousin when the family got together. The farm continued to be the meeting point. Of all the events, Rafael and Camilla had another child, a boy named Tomas. Luciana finally married the doctor she had introduced a few years ago. They had a beautiful ceremony at the farm, keeping with tradition. Helena was 53 years old when she received an unexpected invitation. There was going to be an exhibition about restoration architecture at the Museu da Casa Brasileira in São Paulo, and they wanted to include her work. It was a huge recognition, a validation of the career she had rebuilt. The exhibition was a success. It had photos of the projects Helena had worked on over the years, including the restoration of the Santana farm. There were drawings, plans, models. It was a complete overview of her work. The whole family was present at the opening. Antonio wore a suit, proud of his wife. Beatrice was with Pedro and little Antonio, now 2 years old. Rafael was with Camilla and their children. Luciana was with her husband. Gabriel and Clara, now grown up, 11 and 7 years old respectively, were also there. When Helena was called to give an opening speech, she went up onto the small, improvised stage and looked at the audience. She took a deep breath before beginning, speaking. "Good evening, everyone. It's an honor to be here today sharing a little of my work with you. But before talking about architecture, I want to talk about new beginnings. 12 years ago, I was at rock bottom. I had just gone through a difficult divorce. I was broke, jobless, without prospects. One day, I was publicly humiliated in a store because I couldn't pay for a purchase. I left there thinking my life was over, but it was exactly on that day that I met the man who would change everything." She looked at Antonio, who was in the front row. He didn't offer me pity. He offered me work. He offered me the chance to do what I love, restoration architecture. And over these years, we have restored much more than buildings. We have restored our lives, built a family, built a story. All the projects you see here in this exhibition carry a bit of that story. They carry hope, new beginnings, the belief that it's never too late to build something new. I want to dedicate this exhibition to all the women who, like me, once thought it was too late, that they had missed their chance, that they no longer had value. It's never too late. Never. You have value, you have talent. You deserve to be happy. And one day, when you least expect it, someone will extend a hand and say, "Come with me." And when that happens, have the courage to accept, have the courage to start over. The audience gave a standing ovation. Beatrice was crying. Antonio's eyes were brimming with tears. Gabriel and Clara, despite their youth, understood the emotion of the moment. After the inauguration, there was a cocktail party. Several people approached Helena to congratulate her, to network, to propose partnerships. She spoke with everyone, but at the end of the night, what she wanted most was to be with her family. When they returned to the farm that night, it was already past midnight. The children slept in the car. Antonio and Helena went to the veranda, as they always did. "You were incredible today," Amy said. That speech touched everyone. Helena smiled wearily. "I only told the truth. Our story is about that, about not giving up, about accepting help, about building together." Antonio. He kissed her hand. "Thank you for accepting my hand that day. Thank you for believing in me when you knew nothing about me. Thank you for giving me this family." Helena rested her head on his shoulder. "Thank you for seeing me, for perceiving me when no one else could, for giving me not just flowers on the table, but a whole life in bloom." The years continued to pass, bringing joys and some challenges as well. Gabriel entered adolescence and began to question things, to want more independence. Clara became a determined, strong, opinionated girl. Beatrice and Pedro had another child, a girl named Sophia. Rafael and Camila completed their family with another daughter, Isabella. Luciana had twins, to everyone's surprise and joy. The farm was always full of children, running, playing, growing. Antonio, at almost 70 years old, still worked a little, but most of the management had passed to Rafael. He enjoyed more time with his grandchildren, teaching them about the farm, telling family stories, transmitting values. Helena was at the peak of her career, the office. Her architectural career was booming, and restoration projects were multiplying. She had become a national reference in the field, giving lectures and even publishing a book on the restoration of historical heritage. But even with all her professional success, what mattered most to her was her family. One Sunday in July, the whole family gathered at the farm to celebrate Antonio's 70th birthday. It was a big party, with many guests, live music, and plenty of food. But the most special moment was when her children and grandchildren gathered to pay tribute. Gabriel, now 16, tall and resembling his father, was the spokesperson. "Dad, Grandpa, today you turn 70. 70 years of a life dedicated to family, to work, to the people you love. You taught us the value of honesty, hard work, and generosity. You taught us that family is the most important thing there is. And more than that, you showed us that it's never too late to start over, to love again, to build something new. When you met my mother 12 years ago, you not only changed her life, you changed hers too, and you built this beautiful family that's here today. We are 3 generations reunited because of your love, your courage to open your heart again. Thank you for everything, Dad. We love you very much." Everyone applauded. Antonio was visibly emotional. He stood up from his chair and looked at everyone gathered there. "When I lost my first wife, I thought my life was over. I spent years living on autopilot, just fulfilling obligations without feeling anything, until one day, on an ordinary afternoon, I saw a woman being humiliated in a store, and something inside me woke up. I can't explain what it was, but I knew I needed to talk to her, that I needed to help. I never imagined that impulse would change my whole life." He looked at Helena. "You gave me back my life, love. You made me believe it was possible to be happy again, and you gave me this beautiful family, these children, these grandchildren, all this love. I have no words to thank you." Helena stood up and went to him. She hugged her husband tightly. "We saved each other, Antonio. It was an exchange. And we will continue saving each other every day for the rest of our lives." The party went on until late at night. There was dancing, laughter, music, and joy. The children played in the gardens. The adults talked, reminisced about stories, and made plans for the future. When everyone had left and only the couple remained in the house, it was already past 2 a.m. Helena was exhausted but happy. "What a beautiful day," she said, taking off her shoes. Antonio agreed. "It's good to see the whole family together. everyone happy, everyone getting along. We managed to build this together. They went up to their room, but before going to sleep, they went to the window overlooking the gardens. The moon was full, illuminating everything. The flowers Helena had planted over the years shone under the silvery light. "You kept your promise," Helena said softly. "What promise?" "That our table would always have flowers, and not just the table. Our whole life was filled with flowers." Antonio hugged her from behind, "And it will continue like this. As long as we are together, it will continue." The following year, Helena turned 55. She decided to do something she had always wanted to do. A long trip through Europe with Antonio, visiting historical buildings, museums, and cathedrals. They spent 2 months traveling through France, Italy, Spain, and Portugal. They saw incredible places, ate wonderful food, and took thousands of photos. It was a second honeymoon, a celebration of everything they had built together. When they returned, tanned and rested, they were greeted at the farm with a surprise party organized by their children. Gabriel had prepared a video with family photos throughout the years, from Helena and Antonio's wedding to the present day. It was moving to see the evolution, the growth, the changes, to see the children growing up, the babies being born, the family expanding. At the end of the video was a message from all the children and grandchildren. "Thank you for being our example of true love," Helena cried, watching it. Antonio did too. It was confirmation that they had done everything right, that they had built something solid, something that would last for generations. Gabriel was finishing high school and had decided he wanted to study agronomy. "I want to work on the farm, Dad. I want to continue the family legacy." Antonio was proud but made it clear, "Only do it if it's what you really want, son, not out of obligation." Gabriel smiled. "It's what I want. I love this land. I love this place. I want to take care of all of this." Clara, at 10 years old, already showed talent for drawing. She was always scribbling in notebooks, making elaborate designs for houses, gardens, and furniture. "I think I'm going to follow in Mum's footsteps," she would say. "I want to be an architect too." Helena was moved watching her daughter draw. Sometimes they would spend hours together, Helena teaching techniques, showing how to make plans, how to think about spaces. It was a special moment between mother and daughter. Beatrice was fulfilled in life. She had 2 beautiful children, a solid marriage, and a consolidated medical career. She worked part-time to have more time with her children, but still maintained her pediatric practice. She was a present and loving mother, replicating with her children the care she had received from her own mother. One day she said to Helena, "Mom, I know I went through hardship as a child. I remember some difficult moments, but you know what I remember most? Your love, your effort, how you never gave up on me. That made me who I am today. Thank you for being strong when you needed to be." Helena hugged her daughter. "You have always been my strength, Bea, always." Luciana was experiencing motherhood with twins intensely. It was challenging to balance her career as a doctor with 2 babies, but she managed, with the help of her husband and family. The twins, Lucas and Luia, were everyone's joy. Antonio loved playing with them, making faces, listening to their giggles. Raphael ran the farm with competence and dedication. He had implemented new cultivation techniques, diversified production, and modernized processes. The farm was more productive than ever, and at the same time he maintained the values his father had taught him: respect for employees, care for the land, and social responsibility. One spring day, Helena was in her office on the farm, working on a new project, when she received an unexpected email arrived. It was from a federal university, inviting her to be a visiting professor in the architecture course, teaching a subject on the restoration of historical heritage. It was something Helena had never considered: teaching, transmitting knowledge to the new generation. She talked to Antonio about the invitation. He encouraged her. "You have so much knowledge, so much experience. It would be selfish not to share it with the young people who are just starting out. It will be incredible." Helena accepted the invitation. She started teaching once a week. She discovered that she loved teaching, that she had a knack for conveying complex concepts in a simple way, that she was moved by seeing her students learn. Many of her students identified with her story of having restarted her career after years of inactivity. She became an inspiration, a mentor, a a role model. She received emails from former students thanking her for her teachings, telling her about the projects they were working on, about how the classes had changed their perspective on architecture and on life. The years passed at an impressive speed. Gabriel graduated in agronomy and returned to work on the farm, applying everything he had. She learned a great deal. She brought new ideas, sustainable projects, and modern technologies. The farm continued to grow. Clara entered architecture school, following in her mother's footsteps. She was a brilliant student, full of ideas and creativity. Helena followed everything with pride, sometimes even helping with the college projects. Little Antonio, Helena's grandson, was 8 years old and already showed an interest in medicine, like his mother and father. He was always asking questions about the human body, about diseases, about treatments. Beatrice joked that he would be the third generation of doctors in the family. Sophia, Beatrice's youngest, was quieter, more observant. She liked to read and write, showing talent for literature. Raphael's children were also growing up. Laura was a teenager. Tomas and Isabella were still children, but each already showed their unique personality. Luciana's twins, Lucas and Luia, were 4 years old, talkative, clever, and full of energy. The farm continued to be the meeting point. Every month there was some celebration, some reason to bring everyone together. Birthdays, holidays, school vacations. The main house was always full of life, noise, and laughter. It was exactly as Antonio had dreamed when he decided to restore the property years ago. One Saturday afternoon, Helena was in the kitchen preparing a cake with egg whites. The girl, now 14 years old, was helping by beating the eggs. "Mum, can I ask you a question?" "Of course, daughter, what is it? How do you know you're loving the right person?" Helena stopped stirring the batter and looked at her daughter. "Is it because there's a boy at school?" Clara blushed slightly. "Maybe. But I really want to know, how did you know that Daddy Antonio was the right person?" Helena thought for a moment before answering. "I knew because he respected me from day one. He didn't try to take advantage of my vulnerable situation. He offered me work, not favors. He treated me as an equal, not as an inferior. And over time I realized he was consistent. His words matched his actions. When he promised something, he delivered. When he said he cared, he showed it. What's most important? He made me want to be a person. Better, it didn't make me feel small." Clara absorbed every word. "So it's about respect and consistency?" Helena nodded. "Yes,